Hello, and welcome to the Sharper Shift Podcast. I am your host, Shiv Reddy. This is episode 6. We got 2 divisions left. We're going to start with the NFC South today. The NFC South with the Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints, Atlanta Falcons, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that order. We'll go ahead and cover that. Again, thanks to all the friends and family that have been supporting the podcast. It's been awesome. It's been great to hear your guys' feedback, and we look forward to hearing much more once the season starts and we give out those 5 weekly picks. But without further ado, let's dive into it. We got the Carolina Panthers. Their over-under sits at 6.5. They do get Baker Mayfield from the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield looks to be a better addition than the quarterbacks they've had in recent years with Sam Darnold, Cam Newton, and others. Baker is a first overall pick from 2018, so it looks like he is going to be trying to live up to his potential and play out a contract year here in Carolina. He also gets Christian McCaffrey back in the backfield. Christian McCaffrey has been one of the most prolific running backs in this league when he is not injury prone, but it looks like they'll be seeing some short-term success here in Carolina, at least from the start of the season. It looks like they are healthy. There is Bradley Bozeman, who is a center they picked up from Baltimore, who is out, but it looks like the center position over there is pretty much well intact. It looks like Baker's been getting some good reads at the center position from an offensive standpoint, so look to see this offensive line tick upwards. They did actually get a rookie left tackle, an Ikem Ekwonu from the draft. Let's see how he does. Let's see. He has some pretty crazy competition coming up. Cleveland Browns, obviously Myles Garrett lining up outside of him, and it's going to be fun to watch in week 1. But we'll see how this team goes. The ceiling is high. They're over under 6 at 6.5. Their defense has made some pretty big adjustments as well. They go out and get some secondary help. J.C. Horn is also back from season-ending injury. It seems like a lot of season-ending injuries with Carolina over here from last year. Obviously, they did start 3-0 last year, which was great for them, but they did, however, have the worst record going into that later half of the season. It looks like this team is in for a turnaround, and Matt Rule doesn't have the drama surrounding him with offensive coordinator Joe Brady. Joe Brady is out now. He is also with the Buffalo Bills, and he is the quarterback's coach there, where, quite frankly, I think the offensive coordinator job was too much for him at the time. And I think the transition from college to the NFL definitely did a number on him. But let's see how his success is there in Buffalo. But they do get Ben McAdoo. Ben McAdoo has always been a pretty good offensive coordinator. He's coached Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. He actually went and got a head coaching job at the New York Giants, where he wasn't that successful, obviously, but he does come to Carolina with a new philosophy and tries to turn this offense around. So let's see how the Carolina Panthers do. I do like this over 6.5. I think they're going to be really competitive. I think they'll go out and get at least 2 wins against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are not that great this year, and they are a tough team at home, not in recent years, but if their team is going and making a stride towards the postseason, you will see some home crowd advantage over there. So let's see. I like the Carolina Panthers over 6.5. Wouldn't bet it as my best bet, but I think that this is achievable if they all stay healthy. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints sit at over under 8.5. This team is actually stacked on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I mean, the only question here is the quarterback and Jameis Winston and how consistent he is. Prior to Jameis Winston's injury, he was pretty good. He was throwing darts out there, throwing the long ball. I mean, he was poised to make a comeback, and then he gets injured, tears his ACL. He is a little bit more healthier. He did get injured in preseason and in training camp, but it looks like he is back on his feet, and he did actually play in the last preseason game and drove 2 scoring drives. So it looks to be like Jameis is going to be back in full force here. They do have some reinforcements at the second quarterback position with Andy Dalton. So if Jameis does goes down, they do have a comparable veteran there. And the secondary looks revamped as well. They get Marcus May from the Jets and they get Tyrann Mathieu from the Chiefs. I think Tyrann Mathieu's back in his home state of Louisiana, which will definitely be intriguing to watch this New Orleans defense take shape and take part into causing havoc for other teams' offensive receivers and their running backs. So it looks like this team is going to be good. I do like this number over 8.5. I think they're destined to make the playoffs. I think they're pretty good on both sides of the ball. It all depends on the offensive line play and the defensive line play. If the defensive line can hold up to 2 years ago where they were getting sacks every other series, it almost looked like, I think they could be really good. Davenport is going to be huge. He needs to have a big year this year for this defense to take its next step, but I think they do have some ball hawks in the secondary that could get the job done for them and get pressure on the quarterback from a defensive line standpoint. The offensive line does scare me a little. Terron Armstead is gone. He is now in Miami. Trevor Penning was just lost to injury in the last preseason game. They actually scored a touchdown on that play, but that was obviously preseason, and there's much bigger things to worry about from the offensive line perspective. But Trevor Penning is gone for the foreseeable future. So let's see how this offensive line takes shape. I mean, if you're bringing any pressure to Jameis, you got to bring pressure to the left side where Trevor Penning was. So let's see how this team does. I do think this 8.5 is a little low for this team. I think their roster is built to win at least 10 games, and I think they do end up making the playoffs. So I'm going to go with New Orleans over 8.5 here. Next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are sitting at over under 4.5. This team will fight. I'll give it that. I think this team is going to cover a lot of spreads. I think their defense is not going to be as bad as they were last year. I mean, they gave up the most points per game to any defense, and they had absolutely no offensive weapons. They go out and get Drake London in the draft. They still have Kyle Pitts, who's a nightmare mismatch, and I think they're going to be pretty good this year from an offensive standpoint. They have a mobile quarterback who can account for their deficiencies on the offensive line. I think Casey Hayward makes a good addition in the secondary opposite A.J. Terrell. I think that secondary could hold up coverage enough for this defensive line to get pressure, and I think this 4.5 sits pretty low. I'm not going to get too into the Atlanta Falcons. I think we're going to cover them throughout the season, especially from spreads that are over 10. I think the continuity with Arthur Smith and his coaching staff, with Dean Pease as well, as defensive coordinator standpoint, is going to be good for this team. I think that the over-under is a little bit low here. They're not going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I would probably give that trophy to the Bears, but over 4.5 seems like a reasonable number, and I think they can get it done. They'll probably get some couple wins outside of the division here, and they may get 1 or 2 in the division if they can pull off an upset. But let's go with the over. But I'm not banking on this bet. I don't think it's going to be. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot to see with Atlanta and see what they do with the quarterback, especially Marcus Mariota getting a short leash for Desmond Ridder. So we'll see what this team does, but let's book the over for this. And Tampa Bay Buccaneers are up next. Last but not least, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sit at over under 11.5. Brady and the Bucs are back. They're trying to make that Super Bowl run. They came up a little bit short last season against the Rams. They did force a huge comeback, which was awesome to see, but Brady just came up a little bit short. He comes out of retirement after retiring for literally a blink of an eye, and now Bruce Arians is not at the helm. It's Todd Bowles. We've seen Todd Bowles before. We've seen this story before. I mean, he is a great defensive coordinator. He loves bringing pressure, but how good of a head coach is he? I don't know if he's great. I really don't know, but do you need a great head coach with Tom Brady? Nobody knows the answer, really. I mean, Belichick was there. Bruce Arians was obviously his top level less than Belichick, and he still won a Super Bowl. So let's see what this team can do this year. This over-under win total sits pretty high. 11.5 is very high, especially with all the questions of this offensive line. I think this is actually Brady's First time with an offensive line that is not ranked in the top 10 in PFF. So look for this team to give up a lot of sacks and pressures. And Brady needs to get the ball out quicker. And I don't think he has the dynamic receivers he used to in the past with Antonio Brown gone. Obviously, he's a mental head case, but, the story goes. And Brady looks like Brady's going to pull this team together, but I don't think it's going to be at 11.5. I think they still end up making the playoffs. I think there's going to be a lot of turmoil in the beginning of the season where Todd Bowles has to make some adjustments with his defense and honestly his offense. But if Byron Leftwich and Brady can run with this offense and find something to get clicking within the within the mid part of the season, I think they can really go in and try to make a run at the playoffs. But let's cash this one at under 11.5. So there you have it for the NFC South breakdown. The NFC South banger best bet. With the banger best bet, we are going to go with New Orleans over 8.5. I think even without Jameis Winston's health concerns, I think it's still achievable from a Saints perspective. They do play in a weaker division with Carolina and Atlanta, so I think they can stack up a couple wins there, which will leave them with 5. They do play, again, the NFC East, which is a pretty mediocre division this year. So let's see what they could do. But I am going with the New Orleans Saints over 8.5 as my banger best bet. Thank you all for listening, and make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Have a good one.